How's it going, everyone? This week there wasn't anything major going on in the news. There was a Colorado shooting, another school shooting, so you know there will be an uproar about gun control, which is just ridiculous because other countries, gun control, like in Australia, they try to bring up Australia all the time, but it's failed. It always fails. Venezuela is a good example of that. You know, when you let the only people that supposedly could have guns is your government and military. You know, they're over there killing their people. And Australia, countries like Australia that do have a gun control ban or whatever, you know, it didn't help. It just made crimes even worse. And you know, when you allow criminals and the government to be the only ones who can have guns, then you're in for a world of hurt. People can't defend themselves, and it's just stupid when people try to claim gun control is what we need for people to stop shooting people, because that's not what we need. We need armed citizens that will shoot the people who are committing the crimes, and I guarantee you, your crime will go down. It always has. So gun control is not the answer. The second thing that I saw was, which has been going on for weeks, the Democrats are so desperate to try to impeach Trump that they're trying to find something to incriminate him with. So they're bashing freaking Barr, the Attorney General. Even though the full Mueller report has been released, there was no Russian collusion. There was no crime, nor was there any obstruction. But they think that if they tell everybody, that they're all lying, and that, they're going to get to the nitty gritty, that there's something in there that's going to show that there was a crime committed. And there's not. They just won't drop it. They're ridiculous when there's other stuff that Congress needs and the Senate needs to focus on. There's other problems to worry about, such as the border crisis. We've got all these illegals flooding into our country, and they've literally shown it on the news. Instead of worrying about border security, they've been going on for months about this stupid Russian crap, and it's not there. So they need to get over themselves and move on and start focusing on what the country's problems really are, instead of worrying about impeaching Trump, because I guarantee he's getting reelected in 2020 because of their stupidity. So anyways, that's all that I saw really going on. This week, for your B movie reviews, well, before I get to that, one other thing, I did see where Disney has mentioned that after this last Star Wars movie, they're going to do another trilogy, Star Wars Trilogy. And I'm really hoping they focus on doing, something about Yoda. That would be really neat, because you know, Yoda's been alive for 900 years, you know. It'd be really cool to kind of see what happened back in the day when he was, you know, became the Grand Master. You know, he's the only one who's achieved that title. There's been lots of Master Jedis, but he's the Grand Master. It'd be kind of neat to see how that all, his younger days. As long as they don't throw any PC feminist crap, hopefully Disney's learned their lesson with that, doing that shit, because it don't work. It just alienates the fans. But we'll see. Hopefully it's about Yoda. Moving on to your B-movie reviews. This week I kind of switched genres. I went for to do some actions. Now, you know, they'll have some comedy and drama in them too, but maybe other elements. But the main genre I went for was action. One of these is a military action, like a war movie kind of thing, but not really. It's more of a comedy drama. But they're all Clint Eastwood movies. I started watching one of them and it had Clint Eastwood in it. I mean, I'll just stick with Clint Eastwood. So they're all Clint Eastwood movies. The first one was Every Which Way But Loose. It was done in 1978. It had a really small budget, but it killed it at the box office. It made $106 million just domestically here in the U.S. That's not worldwide. That's huge for back then. 1978. That is huge for back then. I mean, it did amazingly well. Now, the critics bashed the crap out of this movie and said it was terrible. The fans, the audience, just made them eat their words because it became one of the highest grossing movies back then. So, you know, just tell you the critics are stupid, you know. Orville, you know, they did the same thing with Orville. They bashed Orville, you know, the television show here lately. But Orville's killing it, you know. The audience loves it. So, you know, you can't always go with what the critics say, because half the time they're politically motivated or, you know, ran by the media. So, anyways, this movie, of course, starred Clint Eastwood, and he plays a guy named Philo. He's kind of like a street fighter. And then Sandra Locke's in this. Of course, she co-starred with Clint in quite a few movies back then. It's because they ended up getting married, and it just kind of seemed like she was using him to get movie roles, because like never really saw her in anything major except for, you know, the movies that she co-starred with Clint. She was a decent looking woman, but she obviously, I don't know, they didn't work out. They only were together for like 10 years or so. And then you have Geoffrey Lewis. He's fairly well known. He plays his brother, and his name, you know, it's kind of funny. You know, his name is Orville. And then, you know, the other major star in it is, of course, Beverly D'Angelo. And you probably know her. She was a really good-looking woman back then. You probably know her pretty much from, she was mainly known for being the wife in the Vacation movies, you know, alongside Chevy Chase. She played his wife in all the Vacation movies, and that's what she's mainly known for. The movie, well, of course, you also have Clyde. You know, he's an orangutan. He's pretty much, you know, Philo's best friend, you know, which is Clint Eastwood's character. Um, he's Philo's best friend, pretty much. You know, you want him in a bar or some kind of, I would call it a bar fight. There, he has these like little fights that he stages where he, you know, kind of like if you ever seen the movie Lionheart, you know, he gets paid to do these fights or whatever. You know, it's like boxing matches, street fighting, but he places bets on him, and he won. Clyde, the orangutan, he won him in one of these fights. So ever since then, they've been best friends. Clyde pretty much does what he wants. He drinks beer, you know, he loves peanuts, you know, just crazy. He's all the time going to the bars with him and stuff. So, you know, Clyde pretty much does whatever he wants almost. The only one that doesn't really get along pretty much with Clyde is probably their mother. You know, they're both brothers. Orville and Philo are brothers, and Ma, you know, her and Clyde don't get along too well. You know, Clyde does stuff just to tease her and give her crap, and she does the same thing to him. So it's kind of funny. But anyways, the main story is that you know, he's a fighter. Philo's a fighter, and he comes across one night. He's in a bar, and he meets this country singer, which is Sandra Locke, and you know, they get together. And it's kind of strange because when he goes to take her home, she tells him, you know, he'd come pick her up later and see her again, but not go inside because she has a boyfriend living in her trailer with her. But you know, he's okay with them being. Her seeing somebody else is really creepy and a little bit weird. But he's like, okay, whatever, you know. Anyways, the time he meets her is about the time there's this biker gang that shows up and starts giving him all kinds of trouble. They're trying to harass him and give him a hard time. They call themselves the Black Widows, and they're just about a bunch of retards. Every time he gets in a scuffle with them, he starts taking their bikes because they keep leaving them behind, or he beats the crap out of them. He just takes their bikes and loads them up in his trailer or whatever, takes off with them. So it pisses the gang leader off, and he kind of he's all like, oh, we're going to get that Philo, you know, blah blah blah. Nobody does that to the Black Widows, kind of thing. So throughout the movie, this biker gang's constantly giving him a hard time, and of course Clyde, you know, he's constantly flipping him off and laughing at him and all kinds of crap. And that's where you get the express. You know, there's which he doesn't really do it until the sequel, but. You know, there's a famous line where he tells him, right turn, Clyde. And that's just for, you know, when he makes a turn, he tells Clyde a right turn. Clyde sticks out, you know, you're supposed to put out your arm for a right turn or whatever when you're making a turn. But there's a famous scene in the sequel that starts all that up. But anyway, he keeps seeing this girl, and he sees her a few times until one night she starts begging him for money, because something about, you know, our landlord's being terrible to her, and they have no way to pay the landlord for this trailer spot or whatever. On this night, her boyfriend tries to shoot them, and he runs him off the road. Or Clint or Philo, he runs the boyfriend off the road for trying to shoot him. But when they get back to the trailer, he sees that he's there. He's determined to go inside and tell him that she's going with him, and that they're over, and not to mess with her anymore or come looking for her. And she starts bawling, whining, and says, "Don't do that. Don't hurt him. I'll talk to him, you know, and then I'll come meet you, blah, 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 tomorrow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Give me the money." So he gives her the money. And of course, you know, we all know better. The next day he shows up, and she's not there. The trailer's not there. You know, he thinks something's happened to her, but, you know, everyone knows that she took off and ran with the money. And come to find out, the way he got the money was he was selling off all those bikes he was collecting from the Black Widows, and he gave it all to her, which it really ticked off the leader of the Black Widows. But anyway, he decides he's going to go find her. He knows she lives in Colorado, and that she probably went back there. Mentioned something about going back there. So he starts asking around and starts starts asking around, and decides to go after her in Colorado. He gets Orville to come with him, and Clyde, naturally, he goes with him too. And they decide to go to Colorado to look for Sandra. Well, the biker gang, you know, they're after him too, so they go chasing after him as well, to Colorado. There's a couple of cops. One of them he beat the crap out of in a bar fight. Well, they kind of want a piece of him too, so they follow him to Colorado. They get to Colorado, and he's not really sure exactly where she's at. He just knows she's in the area. They stop off at like a food market that's selling fruits. Beverly D'Angelo, she's there. She's selling fruits, and somehow Orville talks her into going with him, becomes his girl. Clint doesn't say anything. He just takes off. It's kind of funny. He just gets in the truck and hands her the fruit. Doesn't even ask who she is or anything. Just takes off. But anyways, it's kind of funny the way he figures it out, because he's talking to Orville like she's not there. And I don't know. It's a real funny scene. You just have to see it. But anyways, they get to Colorado, like I said, and she starts falling around for fights and stuff. It does a few more fights, and they're in this camping grounds, and he runs into her, or she runs into him. She's driving down the road in this truck and runs into him, and then they get together again, and then you know, she says, "Oh, meet me at this Mexican restaurant or bar or something later on." They're all like, "Oh, okay." Well, he's all like, "Okay." Well, he tells Orville and Beverly what's going on, and they get together, and they decide they're going to go fishing during the day before they go there, right? Well, cops show up, the ones that are after him. They find him. They try to take him. Anyways, as I was saying, the cops beat up before they show up. This black guy and this white guy, they show up. There are two cops who are after him. Anyways, they catch him fishing. It doesn't go as planned. The cop sees him. One of the cops sees him trying to catch this big fish. It basically tries to help him, and practically gives the guy, or gives Clint his gun, and then Clint beats the crap out of him, and then goes and puts his truck in neutral and pushes it into the lake. So that didn't work out the way they planned. So they go to meet Sandra at this restaurant. She doesn't show up, so they leave. He has them, Beverly and Orville, he has them drop him off at a bar he thinks she's in. Goes in there. Sure enough, he finds her. He finds her with another guy, basically telling him the same lines she told him when they first met. He confronts her, and then the boyfriend shows up, and he tells her, he says, well, I must be the first person that, wanted more to do with you than just your bed, and it pisses her off because it's the truth. And he starts walking off. He scares the crap out of the boyfriend because he's just this little punk dude with disco clothing on, and a real little guy. But he doesn't do anything to him, so he leaves her. Now, through the whole movie, he's been hearing about this guy named Tank Murdoch, and everybody tries to compare him to this guy named Tank Murdoch. Supposedly he's the best fighter around. He ends up getting a fight with him at the very end of the movie, but he throws the fight because everybody kept saying, oh, he must be the new Tank Murdoch, blah blah blah, and he didn't want to be known as that, so he threw the fight, and then that's pretty much the end of the movie. They all go home. Now the sequel is called Any Which Way You Can. I watched it too. It was done in 1980. It grossed over $70 million domestically, so it did really well too. In the sequel, he's still doing fights, but not as often. He's getting to the point where he don't want to do anymore because he is liking the pain. He enjoys the pain, and that scares him. So he's like trying to get out of fighting. Well, there is a group of mobsters or mob guys, sort of. They want him to fight in a particular fight against this guy named Jack Wilson. And this guy named Jack Wilson, he's a real known fighter. He doesn't lose, and apparently he's killed a guy or two, supposedly, and nobody else will face him anymore. They're scared of him. At the beginning of the movie, he's trying to fight this guy. He's a cop or whatever. A whole large police force is there watching the fight. And in this one, Clyde's not a big fan of cops, so he keeps taking a crap in their freaking squad cars. He does it again at the very beginning, and really ticks off the cops. But he beats the holy crap out of their guy, which doesn't set well with them at all. It's particularly one particular cop, because he knows he's going to get demoted. But anyways, these mob guys, one of them shows up and asks Philo that he'll pay him like a bunch of money if he goes and fights this guy Jack Wilson. At first, Philo accepts the money, even the advance. He gives an advance of 10,000, and he tells Clyde to go hide it from Ma, so Ma don't find it. And Ma, of course, she's trying to watch Clyde like a hawk and figure out where he's hid the money. And she searches all over for it and can't find it. It's pretty funny. Eventually, he eventually reveals that it's under this mattress later on, but he about kills her. She's so mad. But he accepts the money and the fight, and at some point Jack Wilson shows up, and he goes jogging with them, and he nearly falls off this cliff that Philo saves his life and pulls him back up. They go into and then he goes and shows up at a bar he's at. They get in a bar fight, and he saves his life. Some guy just about stabs Philo in the back, and he breaks his arm, saving his life. So they think they're even, blah, blah, blah. But now they know who each other is, and yada, yada, but they're still going to go through with the fight. Even though they really respect each other. You can tell they really respect each other, and they like each other, as friends. But they're still going to do the fight. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of people that get in on this fight for bets and stuff. But everyone, Philo's family basically, Ma and his brother try to talk him out of getting in the fight. Sandra shows back up. She admits she was an idiot. She wants to, restart the relationship, make it up to him, blah, blah, blah. And at first, Philo wasn't really all for that, but Clyde keeps going and hanging out with her and at the bar that she keeps going singing at, so Clyde keeps going there to see her, and eventually, Philo brings her home and gives her a spare room because she's staying at the YMCA at the time. Gives her a spare room. He tries to, go sleep with Clyde in his little shed or whatever, where Clyde sleeps, but she shows up, and he tells Clyde, don't watch, blah, 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 it was just kind of cheesy. Anyways, Clyde gets up early in the morning, goes, does his thing outside. He runs around, does what orangutans do. Anyways, they also talk her into trying to tell him not to get in a fight. So Sandra talks him into trying not to fight as well. So he decides to give the money back to the guy. He calls the guy up, and the guy shows up, and he's throwing a hissy fit, saying this is not someone you tell no to, blah, blah, blah. And that's when he tells Clyde to junk his car. And Clyde just starts tearing up his car while he's in it, and he's trying to get it started, drive off. And Clyde's ripping the car apart. One of his favorite things to do is scrap a car. Anyways, the guy eventually gets out of there, and Clyde's laughing at him. Anyways, the biker gang, they're in this one, they're still after him. They get to a section where they're chasing him at one point in the movie, and they end up getting into where you got some street workers who are, laying down asphalt it with rubber and shit, and liquid rubber, and it get oiled rubber crap or whatever. Anyway, it gets all over the bikers. They're idiots, and they drive right through the crap that's been, as it's being poured on the road, and they drive right through it, and they get it all over him. And you know, he really doesn't need to fight him or anything. They chase him down, they stop, they get out, and they're all like, "Oh, I'm drying," you know. So they turn into like statues. They just fall over. Well, he loads them all up in his truck. Now he's got tar all in his truck. He takes them to the hospital, try to get them to help him out. He tells them that they owe him $40. He tells the leader, "You owe me $40." And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to get you, blah, blah, blah." Well, it causes them to lose all their hair, whatever solution they had to use to get all the tar off of them. They lose all their hair, so now they're riding around with these wigs on. They just look dumber and shit. They kidnapped Sandra. The mob guys that kidnapped Sandra. They even tried to kill Philo, but that didn't work. They kidnapped Sandra and tell him he's got to fight or they'll do something to her. Well, Jack Wilson shows up and he helps him get the girl out because he had nothing to do with that. So they rescue the girl, and then, you know, they get to a point where, you know, they're walking off, you know, and they're talking about, you know, that they've called off the fight, and everybody's pretty much leaving because there's not going to be a fight. But they kind of decide that they're going to have the fight in private, you know, like not let anybody know that they're actually going to fight. So they get in their fight just to see, you know, who can best do. Anyway, some cops show up and see that they're fighting and start spreading it around town that the fight's actually back on. So everybody starts showing up at this barn that they're fighting in, and they bust out of the barn. The fight, you know, it's going down the street. They're fighting all over the place. But eventually, you know, he knocks out, Philo knocks out Jack for just a couple of seconds or whatever, and that's the end of the fight. The bikers won a lot of money because they came to the fight too to beat Philo, but then he made them rich. So, you know, towards the end of the movie, he gives them his $40 and says, "Now we're even," you know, kind of crap. You know, it's kind of funny. And pretty much, you know, at the end of the movie, you know, the cops that were mad, one of the cops that were mad at him at the beginning of the movie, you know, he pulls him over and tries to give him a ticket, and Clyde knocks him out with the right turn Clyde thing, and then that's the end of the movie, you know. So it was a good movie. I liked it a lot. I actually thought the second one was better than the first one. A little more cheesier, but a lot better. And then, of course, keeping up with the whole Clint Eastwood thing, I went ahead and watched 1986 Heartbreak Ridge. And this has Martian Mason in it, Everett McGill, and Mario Van Peebles. They're also in it. The movie made about 42 mil, but it made about 80 million worldwide. 42 domestically and 80 million worldwide. So it didn't do too bad. It did all right. Basically, this movie is basically about Clint Eastwood. He also wrote and directed this movie. Clint Eastwood plays an old gunnery sergeant. He's won a lot of medals. He's even been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. Anyways, he's been in trouble a couple of times with the way the military's changing. You got people who's never seen combat and thinks they know what they're talking about when they don't. But anyway, he's been in trouble a couple times because of that. He gets sent to a basically at the beginning back home to where he was originally from, where he first started, an airborne division, infantry, and he doesn't get along with Everett McGill, which Everett McGill's a major. He's in control of the base and or that division, and he don't see eye to eye with the gunnery sergeant, which is Clint Eastwood. But anyways, when he first meets Mario Van Peebles on his way over there on this bus, transportation bus, and Mario Van Peebles kind of steals his money and takes off and leaves him stranded there, tells the bus to keep going. Nobody, that was it. He was the last one. Nobody else is coming. So he kind of strands him there and steals his money at this cafe. Well, come to find out, Mario Van Peebles is one of the guys in his unit that he's taken over at the base. And he's definitely going to make him pay. You can see it. Apparently his squad or whatever are like the slackers, the recon. They don't want to do anything. They just slack off and do their own kind of thing. So they're kind of pathetic at first when he shows up. He's got this thing where they got to choose what kind of shirt, or guess what kind of shirt he's wearing when he forms them up in the morning. But they keep misguessing what his shirt's color of shirt he's going to wear or whatever. And so he keeps making them wear, or basically go bareback. You know, they can't wear any shirts. They got to go skin, and he makes them run every time. Eventually Mario figures out that how to do it. Where the gunnery's staying, he talks to an old lady who does his laundry and figures out that she lays out what he's supposed to be wearing. So they start wearing the shirts that he wears eventually in the movie. Anyways, Mario Van Peebles, he figures out about him in Heartbreak Ridge, which is the name of the movie. You know, he finds out that the gunnery and won the Congressional Medal of Honor with the Sarge that's there and one other buddy, which is gone. They were only 3 survivors, which is the old lady's husband that owns the bar. He died. The Sarge shows him some pictures of back in the day when they were in a unit together. Mason plays his ex-wife in the movie. She's kind of seeing someone and has even been proposed to, and is thinking about marrying him. But when he shows up, you know, he tells her he kind of wants to get back with her because he's getting retired. He's getting ready to retire. His time serving in the military is almost up, and you know, he don't want to be alone. And she still loves him, so she's conflicted about marrying this other guy. When the gunnery first showed up, Mario Van Peebles and the recon unit, you know, they were a pain in the rear. They literally ran things, did their own thing. There's been a couple of times where the major tried to get them to turn against the gunnery, and it didn't happen. Mario Van Peebles, at first, he thinks he's smart, and he tries to tell him, you know, there's this big guy in the unit, and they try to get him to take out the gunnery, but the gunnery takes him out, and then, you know, he says, do you want me to go to the brig? And he's all like, no, get your ass out there. So, you know, they all eventually start to respect him and do what he tells them. Mario and him become, and Clint, their characters kind of become friends. But you know, the gunnery still lets Mario know who's boss. You know, they get called to a mission. They go to this mission over in Cuba where the Cubans are holding some hostages, American hostages. So they got to go over there and get them out of there. The major, you know, he's on his ass about everything, and when they're there, he's like telling them, "Don't you keep moving forward until I show up, you know, and you know, save the day, because I want to take the glory," kind of thing. But yeah, he tells him, "You can't take this hill until I show up." There's a lieutenant. He's kind of like a bookworm. He's more into like paperwork and all that kind of thing. And he's been letting the gunnery run everything pretty much, even though it's actually the lieutenant's unit. And, you know, the gunnery kind of gives him advice and tells him, you know, you need to kind of step up and take charge. You're the one in command, not me, you know, kind of thing. And he kind of learns to do that when they go to, there's a couple times where he confronts the major, you know, but, you know, he eventually, you know, on this mission, he kind of does that. He kind of steps up and takes charge. They lose like one guy out of the unit. The major shows up towards the end of the fighting, and he tries to take, you know, like he's the one who did it, but at the same time he turns on the gunnery, because the gunnery and the lieutenant, they took the hill because the lieutenant told them to, so they went ahead and did it. And he chews the gunnery out when the lieutenant's like, no, I'm the one who told him to do it, you know. So the major's being a real jerk, and he's from like supply and shipping, so he really has no clue what it's like on the battlefield. So when the general shows up in the helicopter, you know, he basically tells them to piss off, you know, it looks like, you know, they came in here and kicked some ass, you know, and you did jack squat. So, which really ticks off the major, but oh well, you know, he takes it. And then, you know, they all come home, and his ex-wife is basically waiting for him in the bleachers, and walks off with him, you know. She apparently didn't decide to go marry that guy after all. And that's the end of the movie. It was really, really a good movie. Heartbreak Ridge is not so much a war movie, it's more of a comedy and drama. You know, all the action, if you want to call it action, happens at the end of the movie when they're doing all their fighting over there in Cuba. But it's a really good movie. I liked it. I definitely give it 2 thumbs up. You should check it out if you've never seen it. As I've told you before, you know, in all my videos, if you have a suggestion of a movie that I might have missed and didn't even know about, a gem that might be really good, sci-fi, horror, action, whatever. You want me to check it out and do a review on it and get my thoughts and opinion on it, then go ahead and leave it in the suggestions down below. I told you I'd tell you the truth, and you've just been told.